The rain fell in relentless sheets over the streets of New York City, turning the sidewalks into slick rivers of shimmering reflections. Emily ran as fast as she could, her soaked coat clinging to her body, the heels of her boots slapping against the wet pavement. She had never been this far from home before, and now she regretted leaving work late. The city, which usually felt alive and comforting, seemed dark and menacing tonight. Every shadow looked like it might hide danger, every distant sound made her heart jump. She had just left a small coffee shop after grabbing a late evening drink, hoping the short walk home wouldn't be too bad. But as she turned down a narrow alley shortcut to save time, she froze. A figure emerged from the darkness, and before she could react, a hand grabbed her bag and yanked it violently. "Hey, stop!" Emily shouted, but the figure didn't listen. Panic surged through her, cold sweat mixing with the rain on her face. Her mind raced. What should she do? Run? Scream? Suddenly, a voice rang out, deep and commanding. "Let her go." The figure holding her bag hesitated, and Emily felt a strong presence behind her. She barely had time to process before she was lifted off the ground in strong, careful arms. "Don't worry, I've got you," the voice said again, calm but urgent. Emily's heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the shock of being suddenly rescued. She struggled a little, unsure if this stranger could be trusted, but there was something in his eyes, dark yet gentle, that made her pause. The man carried her swiftly through the rain to a sleek black car waiting nearby. Its engine roared to life, and they sped away from the alley, the city lights blurring past like streaks of color. Emily clutched her coat tighter around her, shivering not only from the cold but from adrenaline. Her mind was spinning. Who was he? Why did he help her? And why, strangely, did she feel an odd sense of safety in his arms, even though she had never met him before? The ride was quiet except for the hum of the engine and the steady beat of the rain. Emily's fear gradually gave way to curiosity. The man glanced at her once, just briefly, a small, reassuring smile appearing on his face. "You're safe now," he said simply, and Emily found herself nodding, though her voice had failed her. The streets outside slowly disappeared behind them, replaced by a sense of movement, of leaving the danger far behind. When the car finally stopped, Emily found herself looking at an enormous mansion, its lights glowing warmly against the dark night. She blinked, unsure if she was dreaming. The man helped her out of the car, and for the first time, she truly felt the weight of exhaustion and fear lift from her shoulders. "Come inside," he said. "You'll be okay here." And as she stepped through the grand entrance, Emily realized that her life, which had felt so ordinary just hours ago, had suddenly changed forever. Emily awoke to a gentle light filtering through tall, ornate windows. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was, her mind foggy from exhaustion and the shock of the night before. Slowly, memories returned, the alley, the rain, the sudden fear, and then the warmth of strong arms holding her. Her heart skipped a beat as she realized she was no longer in danger. The room she was in was unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls were painted a soft cream, adorned with exquisite paintings that seemed centuries old. Plush carpets muffled her footsteps as she swung her legs over the edge of a large, inviting bed. A vase of fresh flowers sat on a nearby table, filling the room with a subtle, comforting fragrance. She glanced around, still uncertain whether this was real or a dream. A soft knock on the door made her jump. "Emily." The man's voice called, familiar and calm. She recognized it immediately, Alexander. She hesitated before answering. I'm here," she said tentatively. The door opened, and he stepped in, his tailored suit soaked from the rain but impeccably neat. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his eyes scanning her face with concern. I think I'm okay," Emily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She noticed a faint smile tugging at his lips, though his eyes remained serious. Alexander set a cup of tea on the table beside her and gestured for her to sit. "You must be hungry. You've been through a lot," he said gently. She accepted the tea, its warmth seeping through her chilled fingers, and realized for the first time how thirsty and hungry she truly was. As Emily sipped her tea, Alexander sat across from her, his posture relaxed but attentive. "You're safe here," he reassured her. "No one will harm you while you're under my roof." There was a sincerity in his words that made her heart flutter. She noticed the fine details of the mansion, the marble floors that gleamed under the soft light, the towering bookshelves, the delicate sculptures placed around the room. Everything spoke of wealth, refinement, and careful curation. Despite the luxury surrounding her, Emily felt an unexpected comfort. Alexander's presence was grounding. He had rescued her without hesitation and had made sure she was cared for. There was a quiet strength about him that went beyond money or power, something protective and genuine. She found herself studying him, wondering what kind of man could be both commanding and compassionate. Minutes turned into an hour as they spoke quietly. Emily told him about her work, her life, and the simple routines she had thought so ordinary before that terrifying night. Alexander listened intently, never interrupting, his gaze steady and understanding. She felt a warmth growing inside her, not just gratitude, but a strange sense of connection she hadn't expected. By the time she finished speaking, she realized that the fear she had carried through the alley was gone, replaced by a feeling she couldn't quite name, but that made her heart beat a little faster whenever he looked her way. As evening approached and the golden light of the sunset streamed through the windows, Emily sat quietly, drinking in the beauty of the mansion and the unexpected kindness of the man who had rescued her. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to breathe, to hope, and to imagine that maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change forever. Days passed in a blur of quiet luxury, and Emily began to settle into life within Alexander's mansion. Each morning, sunlight spilled through the grand windows, illuminating rooms filled with rare art, plush furnishings, and the soft hum of life in a home that was as majestic as it was comforting. Emily found herself wandering through hallways lined with bookshelves, her fingers brushing over leather-bound volumes as she marveled at the knowledge and history contained within them. Alexander often joined her, guiding her through the library and pointing out his favorite collections. He was always attentive without being overbearing, watching her with a quiet curiosity that made Emily self-conscious and intrigued all at once. They shared breakfasts in the sunroom, where light danced across crystal glasses and fresh flowers brightened the table. Alexander laughed easily at her small jokes, and Emily found herself laughing more freely than she had in months. There was something magnetic about him, the way he carried himself, the gentle authority in his voice, and the warmth that softened his striking, almost intimidating appearance. Evenings became moments Emily cherished. She would watch him play the piano in the music room, his fingers gliding effortlessly over the keys as the room filled with a melody that seemed to speak directly to her soul. Sometimes he would catch her staring, and she'd look away, cheeks flushed, feeling the undeniable pull of attraction she could no longer ignore. Alexander, too, seemed aware of it, though he never forced a conversation about feelings. Their connection was unspoken, growing in quiet gestures, a hand brushing hers, a shared smile over a story, the way he would look at her as if he were trying to memorize every detail of her. One afternoon, Alexander took Emily to the mansion's garden. The late summer sun cast a golden glow across roses and magnolias, and a soft breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. They walked side by side, speaking of trivial things, books, movies, the city, but every conversation seemed to deepen the invisible bond between them. Emily felt herself opening up in ways she had never done before, trusting him completely. She noticed how his eyes softened when he looked at her, how his protective presence made her feel safe, cherished, and seen. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Emily realized the truth she could no longer deny: she was falling in love with the man who had saved her. And Alexander. She could feel it in the subtle way he lingered near her, the way he watched her reactions, the quiet intensity in his gaze. Their connection was no longer just about gratitude or safety, it was something deeper, something that neither had planned but both welcomed with a quiet inevitability. Later that evening, as Emily sat in the library reading by lamplight, Alexander entered quietly. He didn't speak immediately, just stood at the doorway for a moment, his eyes fixed on her. She looked up, and their gazes met. In that silent exchange, the air seemed charged with unspoken words and feelings too powerful to name. Emily's heart raced, a mix of anticipation and longing, as she realized that her life had changed completely. What had begun as rescue had quietly blossomed into something much more profound. The beginning of love neither of them had expected, but both could no longer deny. The mansion was quiet that night, bathed in the soft glow of chandeliers and moonlight streaming through the windows. Emily sat on a velvet sofa in the drawing room, her hands folded neatly in her lap, though her heart raced like a drum. Alexander had asked her to join him, but neither of them had spoken about what was on their minds. The air was heavy with anticipation, as if the house itself knew that something important was about to happen. Alexander entered the room, his usual confident stride softened by a vulnerability Emily rarely saw. He stopped a few feet away, studying her face with a gaze so intense it made her breath catch. "Emily," he said softly, stepping closer, "there's something I need to tell you." She swallowed hard, sensing the seriousness in his tone. Her chest tightened with both excitement and fear. Could this be the moment that changed everything? He reached out, gently taking her hands in his. The warmth of his touch sent a shiver down her spine, and she looked up at him, searching his eyes for a hint of what was coming. "I've never felt this way about anyone," he admitted, his voice low but steady. "From the moment I saw you, I knew you were extraordinary. And now, I can't imagine my life without you in it." Emily's heart surged, emotions bubbling to the surface she had tried to suppress. Gratitude, admiration, and longing collided with a deeper feeling she could no longer deny: love. For a moment, neither spoke, their eyes locked, the silence full of electricity. Emily's lips parted slightly as she whispered, "Alexander, I feel the same. I've never felt this way before either, but I do. I can't stop thinking about you." Relief and joy softened the edges of his expression, and he finally leaned closer. Slowly, their foreheads touched, a tender connection that made the rest of the world vanish. The mansion's grandeur faded into the background as they sat together, hands entwined, hearts beating in rhythm. Alexander brushed a strand of wet hair from her face, his fingers lingering on her cheek. Emily leaned into his touch, feeling safe, cherished, and utterly seen. The fear and uncertainty that had shadowed her life melted away, replaced by trust and affection. In his arms, she felt home, not a building, not wealth or luxury, but a person who would stand by her, protect her, and love her. Hours passed like minutes as they talked quietly, sharing hopes, dreams, and stories of the lives they had once led. Every glance, every smile, and every gentle touch strengthened the invisible bond that had grown between them. Finally, under the soft moonlight streaming through the tall windows, Alexander pressed his lips to hers. It was a kiss full of promise, passion, and reassurance, the culmination of everything they had felt but not yet said. Emily responded with all the emotion she had been holding back, her heart overflowing with love. As they pulled back slightly, foreheads still resting together, Alexander whispered, "I want us to face the world together. From now on, no more fear, no more running. Just you and me." Emily smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "just us." Outside, the city pulsed with life, but inside that grand mansion, two hearts had found their perfect home. Rescue had led to safety, safety had led to trust, and trust had blossomed into a love neither had expected, but both would cherish forever.